In this story of Elijah, we have his eyes being open to see these unseen hosts that no one else knew about. And then God did will that they would act and protect his will and his people. And one thing that struck me as I was considering this story's biblical account is a story that I'd heard before from a guy, from a missionary, from a modern 19th century missionary named John Paton. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with John G. Paton.
Never heard this.
He was a missionary to the New Hebrides, which is some islands in the South Pacific. And he very, very dangerous place to go, unreached people group. And he made it his mission to go and establish, basically a missionary center there, aiming to bring not just Christianity, but also the effects of Christianity, education, ending of some really horrible slavery practices that existed in this area. And so John Paton goes there, and I've heard this story many times. I've tried to track down the primary sources and figure it out. It's one of those stories that's like you hear it all over the place. It's really hard to nail down because it's a personal anecdote. There's obviously you can't put it in a test tube. You can't play back the 4K footage from the 1850s or 1860s. But he tells this story of a night when this unconverted tribe had determined that they were going to kill them. Mm-hmm. They were going to break into the compound, kill his wife, kill him, basically say, no, your God can't, you're not allowed to be here. This is our place. We're going to do our thing. And John Paton and his wife, the story goes, essentially just basically knelt and prayed all night. We're like, well, Lord, we're going to die.
Yeah.
Unless you do something, we're basically going to die. And they continued to pray through the night, and they were surprised when morning came and the sun came up. Here they were. They looked out their door, and there's nobody there. These tribesmen had gone for no reason. There's no fight. They didn't start shooting at them or threatening them or saying you savages go away. There was none of that. It was like they just prayed. And about a year later, the story goes, the tribesmen were converted. Their chief was converted, and they converted to Christianity. And Paton he's talking to the chief, and he says, do you remember a year ago, you were all, it seemed, ready to come and kill us. What happened? And the chief I know. Listen, guys, I know 18th century or 19th century journalism, whatever. But the story goes that he said, well, we were going to do it, but there were all those men there.
Dude.
There were dozens of armed men, swords, and we didn't know where they came from, but we kind of looked and went, I guess we don't kill the Christians today. And John Paton's like, those were angels. There's no crazy. So it reminds me of this story though, because Paton didn't even see it. So, and there's some other versions of the story, but in this account, I look at that and I say, whether I'm not 100% certain this historically happened. I think there's a good chance it did, but
personal anecdote, there's always doubt.
Yeah, if it did, there is nothing in that story that is inconsistent with the biblical data.
Right.
That's the part of it that makes me go, when we get really skeptical and we go, oh, there's no way. Yeah. There's no way. That's some 1850s guys making stuff up, blah, blah, blah. But I go, but there's actually nothing implausible biblically about that story.
Right.
If God decided that the way he was going to save the tribesmen of the New Hebrides in the South Pacific was he was going to allow his servants to almost be killed, and then he was going to send some angels and say, not today.
Yeah.
And then he was going to demonstrate his glory that way. God can do that. Look what he did with Elisha.
Congratulations, unreached people groups.
Yeah.
You will be Christians.
You're Christians. Yeah. It's like, did you see that meme recently that's like, oh, all of you moderns who are all of a sudden converting to Nordic paganism and stuff.
Yeah.
You should follow the great tradition of the Nordic pagans and convert to Christianity.
Just give them a minute.
You just go full Boniface.
Congratulations. The human sacrifice will stop.
Yeah. Hey, this stops today.
This
in the name of Jesus.
You're welcome.
No more, or in India, no more sati, no more burning widows on the pyre of their dead husbands.
Yeah.
No, this ends today.